In today's video, we are going to focus on the peekaboo boxing stance and then go into peekaboo footwork. Now let's begin. The peekaboo boxing stance is really quite simple. We're going to start, if you're right-handed or an orthodox fighter, you're going to bring your left foot forward. Usually I tell people to stand in a neutral position and just take a natural step forward with your left leg. That's your stance. You want to keep your hips and your shoulders more squared up to your opponent. This allows you to move your head from side to side and bob and weave a lot easier. The back heel can be flat or slightly raised. I like to raise it up a little bit and then get on the balls of the feet. What you don't want to do is stay in this overly crouched position. There's no way you can fight for 6 to 10 rounds bent over like this. Okay, that's not peekaboo. If you watch videos of Tyson, he's rarely bent over. He is has a slight medium crouch to his boxing stance. There's a medium bend in the knees. Okay, I'm going to keep my hands in 3 different places on my face. The standard peekaboo stance is having the hands on the cheeks, the cheekbones protecting the jaw, and then having your elbows pulled into your body, and then you kind of pull your stomach in and crunch in a little bit, where the elbows will block the liver shot, the body shot, the kidneys, whatever. So I'm right in here. The second hand position is up a little bit higher. If you watch Mike Tyson spar, he doesn't always keep his hands here. Sometimes he'll have them out a little bit. And it all depends on the range you are or the distance between you and your opponent. So if I turn to the side, if I'm closer to my opponent, I might keep my hands higher on my head. You see how I sink into my hips, pull my stomach in. Both shoulders and hips are facing towards my opponent. What I'm not doing is blading up, pointing the shoulder. Okay? From that position, I would utilize, it's hard to slip all the way to the outside. Okay? If I'm more bladed up, I'm going to more pull away from a punch or do more of a Philly shell type movement versus peekaboo. But from the side, you can see where my hands are on my cheeks. Okay? Protecting the chin, the jawline. Okay? But the closer I get to my opponent, my hands will come up higher. How I usually do it, I base it on who I'm sparring, or eventually if you're competing, how hard or how fast my opponent is. If my opponent is super quick, I might have my hands up a little higher. Okay? If he hits really hard, again, have my hands up to shield my head a little bit more. This is the standard high guard or high block in boxing. Every professional fighter sooner or later would do this high guard like a default punch block on your head. Okay, so just a quick review. Hips, shoulders are facing my opponent. The chin is tucked, shoulders slightly shrugged. The hands are on my cheekbones right here. Okay, that way I can start utilizing my head movement. The head movement, the slips, ducks, and bobbing and weaving are your main defensive weapons in the peekaboo boxing system. Okay, now that we got the fighting stance, the peekaboo boxing stance down, what I'm going to do is now show you the first piece of footwork, which I like to call stepping. Just normal stepping in boxing. So from the peekaboo stance, I'm going to first go forward. All I'm going to do is going to take a step with my lead foot and then take a step with my rear foot. There's 2 ways you can do it. I can step, or I can step, drag. Okay, show you again. Step, or step, drag. I personally like to step. I like to stay on the balls of the feet and keep moving. So going forward, step. Now, once you go forward, you go backwards. Step, step, step. So with this footwork, which I call stepping, the direction you go, either forward, backwards, or we get to the side, the foot closest to that direction moves first. So watch again. Step, step. I'm going forward, so I'm moving my lead leg first. Step, step. If I go backwards, use that rear leg first. Step, 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 step. The one thing you want to do is your first step in the direction of travel can be big, but your second step is always small. So watch, I can take a big step here, then a small. Big step, small. The reason why you want to take a small step on your second step, because if I take one large and one large, my feet come together. Then I lose my stance and potentially lose my balance. So one more time, let's actually go from the side. I'll start over here. Step, 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 step. Now going backwards. Step, 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 step. One little trick that I like to do when I do footwork is I use some kind of body movement to give me momentum with my footwork. So watch what I do going forward. I don't always just step, step. What I'll do is I'll do a little crouch, a little like a tiny little squat when I take that first step. Step, 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 step. What that does is it gives my body will give me momentum to move forward naturally. Now going back. So I put the little crouch in there. Little crouch, little crouch. So that is moving forward and backwards with the peekaboo footwork. Now let's work on stepping, or what I call side stepping with the peekaboo footwork. Really simple. Start from your stance. If I'm going to go to my right hand stance, remember the foot closest to the direction of travel is going to move first. So I step, 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 step. You can see where I put that little dip. Watch again. Step, step. I put a little dip. What that does is it generates momentum. Generates momentum. Also keeps me in that lockdown, that tight defensive position. Okay? Now go to the left, same thing. I'm going to step, 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 step. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. As you can see, just small little steps. If I take a big step, I do it with the first step and not the second step. So if I take too big, my feet come together. That is what I do not want. So one more, actually, from the side, I'm going to step, 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 trying to maintain my stance for the entire time. Step, 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 step. Now that completes the stepping portion of the peekaboo footwork. We went forward, backwards, and side to side. Okay, the next piece of footwork that we're going to focus on is called the leg spring, or you can call it anything you want. It's basically a diagonal step through to the side of your opponent, cutting that angle. I call it the leg spring or step to the side. You can hear Kevin Rooney, when he's training Mike Tyson, call it a bunch of different names, but most of the time he will say spring to the side. So I call it the spring, the leg spring. So from the peekaboo stance, we're going to go to the right hand side first. I'm going to take my right leg and step through. Now I'm technically in a southpaw stance. Once again, I'm going to do that diagonal step through like this. Now, what gives it the leg spring name is I'm going to do it quickly and bounce with it, and then watch what I do at the end. I'm going to quickly go to the side and then turn my hips to face my opponent. Once again, quickly, and when I land, I'm going to squat down a little bit. What I'm doing is preloading my right hand side to fire a punch. From this position, I will not fire a left punch. There's no power. There's nothing behind it. From this one, I can turn into the number 2 or the hook number 2, a 6 to the body, a 4, or 6 hook to the body. Okay, let's show again. I'll do it slow. I'm going to step, turn, face my opponent. Square my hips up to my opponent. Once again from the stance, I'm going to spring to the left, right, turn. The momentum is generated by driving off this lead leg. When I step through, I'm driving off. You see my feet actually leave the ground about a 1/2 inch. It's almost like I am jumping, but I'm keeping my feet as close as possible to the ground. So let's do a little bit quicker. Then I shift, I load my stance, and I can fire from that position. I cut that angle off my opponent. Like if my opponent is standing directly in front of me, I'm going to spring to the side and then turn and hit. Okay, that's the right hand side. I'm going to do the same thing to the left hand side, but this time I'm not going to do a opposite leg step through. I'm going to drive off this rear leg, kind of jump or hop, and I'm going to use this left leg to cut the angle like this. You can see where my stance is loaded. I'm loaded now. Okay, once again, I step off, I'm preloaded. I do that little squat or crouch, because this way I can shift my body weight, pivot on the balls of my feet, and then face my opponent. Once again, spring to the side, shift. So practice shifting. Practice like spring to the side, then shift my body weight. I'm going to pivot just like a screen door opening and closing. From here, I'm going to open the screen door or close it and turn into my punch. I'm not just going to do this for fun. I'm going to try to fire off of it. So once again to the left-hand side, spring to the side, throw your punch. Usually a 1 or a left hook. I can go uppercut, body, or I can throw like a cross from the southpaw position. So left hand side, I'm going to spring, rotate. Right hand side, spring to the side, rotate. Remember, I'm going to get that little crouch. Keep the hands on the face, because I could be catching counter punches when I do this. Normally when I do a leg spring, I will set it up with my hands first. If you watch my video of 25 Mike Tyson combinations on the heavy bag, you will see where I will step in with the 7-2, spring to the side, then throw the 2. Or I'll step in 7-2, spring to the side, left hook to the head. So that is leg springs into peekaboo footwork. Now we're going to move on to the hardest, most difficult piece of footwork in the peekaboo. It is called the twist. The twist is a more difficult move to learn to do, but once you get it down, it is a very effective move when you are close to your opponent. You're in that close range. This does not work when you're on the outside. When you're on the outside, that's where you're stepping or doing your leg springs to get close. But the twist, you're already close. Remember, the goal of peekaboo boxing is to be elusive, counterpunch my way in, work in behind a jab, and get close and get to one side or the other. I never want to stand directly in front of my opponent when I'm close. I want to get to one side or the other. So the twist, I'll step back a little bit, is going to be like this. I'm going to start and learn the movement by itself in like a horse neutral stance. Like a neutral stance, a squared off stance with both feet together. So this is how we're going to learn it. I'm going to hop, turn all the way to the back side, and then hop back. So I got the little squat, the little bounce in the legs. All right, once I go that side, I can go the opposite side. Once you get that motion and you get your balance down, you can speed it up. Okay, so that is the motion of the twist. But that's not how you actually do it when you're sparring. When I actually do it in sparring, I'm on the inside close to my opponent, and I'm going to twist to the side. But this time I'm going to preload I'm going to preload that right hand. So if I twist to the left-hand side, I'm going to preload the right side of my body. Why? Because I'm going to fire off of that position. So one more time. If I'm going to go to this side, I'm going to twist to the side, preload it, fire. Now if I go to the other side, the same thing happens. I'm going to twist to the side, preload the left hand so I can fire those hooks or uppercuts. Again. Other side. And that is the twist. So another good drill you can learn with the twist is you blend the twist and the leg spring together. So for this one, I will show you like this. I will twist, leg spring. Start again. Let's go to the other side. Twist, leg spring. That is a good drill to help condition the legs. Do I fight like that? Normally not. Usually I'm more loose, working my head, working behind my jab, and then I spring to the side, fire my combination. Or if I'm on the inside, one side or the other, I can twist and fire my combination, and then move my head after my last punch. So that is the twist combined with the leg spring. Okay, this last part is a bonus footwork drills that you can do and add to your boxing game or sparring. I talked about when you're in the peekaboo stance that you're in this locked down, squared off position. But when you're sparring, you don't always have to stay here. When I'm on the outside, I can loosen my hands up a little bit when I'm moving my head. But usually when I make the decision to move in, use head movement to close the gap and get close to my opponent, I will put the hands on my face. Like that. So I work my head and the hands here. But when I'm on the outside, I'm going to do the first thing we're going to show you for the bonus is the boxer bounce. Every boxer does it, is how to bounce between both feet, on the balls of the feet. So I go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So get in the habit of just bouncing back and forth. Small little movements. Just bouncing. You go up, back and forth. Back. You learn that through jump roping. Okay? Back and forth. You don't do it all the time. Okay? Maybe I'll put a little bounce when I'm moving around, moving my head, working my jab. I'll put a little bounce. I can keep my hands more out a little bit. Okay? And then when I want to lock it down and move in with my head movement, I'll place my hands back on my face. So that's the boxer bounce. The other thing you can do is called an L step. It's just a change of direction. All right? Or it's almost like, I use it almost like a reset button when you're sparring. So when I'm out moving around, I pull this leg back, step forward with this one like an L. Step out. So I pull that leg back, pull my left leg, step out with my right, then bring the left leg back forward. We'll do it slow. So I step back, step out, bring the left foot forward. So when I'm sparring, maybe I go back to the outside, I'll do the L step. Okay? L step. Maybe I'll get a little bounce in the legs, get a little bounce. Maybe I'm boxing more on the outside. Maybe I'm boxing, going those jabs, boxing, moving my head, and then do an L step. There is other pieces of footwork. I will cover that in a totally different video that's not under the peekaboo banner. So you got the bounce, the L step, and circling or shuffling. That's another one. So shuffle, I circle. It's like I'm doing the stepping motion. It's like I'm driving off the opposite foot and circling. So I might be bouncing, circle a little bit. I call it the shuffle. Here, maybe I'm bouncing a little bit, poof, working the jab, get a little bounce, maybe do the L step, maybe slip in, spring to the side, or do the twist, working my shadow boxing, get a little bounce, get the L step, shuffle away a little bit to catch my breath maybe. So those are the three pieces of bonus footwork. You don't have to do it. Everybody ultimately is going to come up with their own style and ways of doing their footwork. Now let's move on to the last piece of footwork, which is called the zigzag. The zigzag is like this. I almost have to show you to get you to understand it. So when I'm moving forward quickly, either when I'm slipping side to side, or if I want to get in close fast, I'm going to step out, step out, step out, step out. And I put that little crouch and lean to the side a little bit. Okay? Let's look at it again. I'll back up. It's called zigzag. Step out, step out, step out, step out. Almost like the leg spring, but smaller steps. Step out, step out, step out, step out. So what that does is, you're not just going to step into someone, you're going to move your head, either side to side using slips or bobbing and weaving. So let's put it with slips. So if I step out, I slip. Step out at an angle, slip, 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 slip. And that's how I'm going to maintain my balance moving in. So it might be orthodox stance, southpaw stance. Orthodox stance, southpaw stance. Let's do it again. I'm just stepping out at an angle. Let's see if we can do it from the side. Step out and slip, step out and slip, step out and slip, and you get the point. Now, let's add the bob and weave to the zigzag footwork. I'm going to step out, weave, step out and weave, making those little steps to get close to my opponent. Maybe I'm slipping punches, bobbing and weaving to get close to initiate my inside combinations, hooks and uppercuts. Again, and you can go as fast as you want to go. I recommend through my videos, there's two things you need to do. Work the jab as much as you can and learn to relax, go slow and smooth until you get the system, master the techniques. A lot of people try to go too fast, too hard, too soon, and their technique suffers. It's okay to go slow, to warm up properly, and then you can speed it up down the road. So let's look at both variations with the zigzag. Slipping, and then if I get in of my opponent, if they're here, that's when I can fire my shots. Remember, the goal of peekaboo is to get in, counter punch, or jab my way to the inside where I can open up my combinations by getting to one side or the other. Okay, now let's do the weave. So I weave and I step. Boom, I can fire my combinations off of this movement. So I'll give you an example. If my opponent throws a jab at me, I might step. Now that jab is here and he's here, I just made my way inside. What I don't want to do in sparring is walk straight in. If I'm going to be an aggressive pressure style fighter, which peekaboo boxing's all about, is aggression, elusiveness, counter punching, and being exciting, I got to make sure I'm not taking punishment coming in. Because you may train peekaboo, but if you do not train it properly and then eventually do it in sparring against different styled opponents, you're going to be moving your head, you're going to get cracked really hard, and then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start pulling away. So you really got to practice these drills. Start with the feet. You got to start with the feet, the footwork. Everything begins and ends with the foot. Even throwing punches, it starts in my right big toe. So if I throw the cross, I rotate, drive with that big toe, and drive my whole hips and everything behind it. You see people all the time when they punch with their upper body, and they leave their lower body behind. You do not want to do that. So that wraps up the video for peekaboo boxing footwork. I hope you enjoyed it, and remember, there is no ultimate style, only ultimate practitioners.